open environments. My name is Daniel Nagy. I'm System Administrator at Log. And the folks who want to get the most out of this today are probably system administrators like myself, perhaps support folks, management here to hold up with that would be helpful. We'll start with a definition because that's probably going to be most useful. What is an open environment? And why is it different than providing security in any other kind of environment? Well, we'll borrow a term from firewall, which is a default deny. An organization that does not have a default deny policy. What that means is by default, you are granted all the rights to use whatever it is you need. You have no restrictions placed on you. If you have a default deny policy, that means that you are denied all rights, and then rights are assigned to you based on what you need to accomplish in your job or whatever your long-term goal is. Education institutions typically do not have default deny policies. You plug your jack into the wall, you have access to just about anything you want. An open environment is where a single or small groups of people can actually get you to provide services for whatever project they're working on. With very few checks and balances. There's no committee deciding or worth the expenditure of time and energy. Pretty much you're just allowed to talk folks into or provide them for yourself. It's where technology runs somewhat democratically. If there's a big vote, there's nobody that's there typically saying no, you can't do it. It's just a bad idea from a security standpoint. No matter how badly you need it, it just opens up too much. It does promote a free flow of information, which can be beneficial and is necessary in an educational environment. On the other hand, free flow of information can also be detrimental in the fact that there are people out there that you may not want to have access to that information. Educational facilities are open environments, and they must remain that way to some extent. The only way the knowledge can be passed along is if information really is unfettered.
Cell phones, wireless, everything going on.
Places like Lockheed, UPS, Phillips, they're not open environments. Those are places where when you walk in, you're assigned a user ID and password, and that will get you into whatever internal system they have. If you are a secretary, then you can go to the Office Depot site to order supplies, but you can't go check your mail like that.
Any of our group.
So why do we do security?
This could be anything from taking
the first rule is, of course, self-preservation. And Scott's first rule of IT security is that you have all the responsibility for IT security, but you have none of the authority for it. And your primary role in that organization is to take complaint when something goes wrong. But now this is not a new theory that's been introduced. This is the principle of business management. This is Business Management 101. In order to have any kind of responsibility, you have to be authority to go do it. So the first reason we do it is to we don't get fired. Open environments such as educational environments are considered high-yield, low-risk environments. They typically have access to a lot of bandwidth, perhaps a lot of storage space, and they're low risk because there's very rarely any kind of security implemented.
And we have to with some of our factors. Some of the newer factors.
Hackers always go for the easy target. Just like a burglar will go for the house with no dog and no burglar alarm, there's absolutely no reason for a hacker to go after Amazon.com's website when they can simply hack the server and get whatever IRC bot they want and gain all the storage space and all the bandwidth they need with absolutely very low risk.
Our organization and how we have things set up. How we do our help.
We all need to be on the same page, so I'm going to start with some of the basics to it. This is not really meat and potato stuff. This is not really ethereal or the esoteric stuff. And it really does depend on what kind of server you run. There's a variety of operating systems out there. They all function, some will function radically different from others. So you have to look at your individual situation and then make your decisions based on what you're running.
For some questions and comments and tips from you. Probably I'm going to try to
on your server, don't run any servers you don't need. This is really basic stuff. If you don't need FTP, don't turn it on. If the hack du jour comes out for FTP or the hack du jour Apache, patch comes out, you don't need it, don't run it just to have it. It just doesn't make sense. And then you don't have to worry about it. If something, if you see, on CNN that, whatever is the exploit's out for and you're not running it, you don't have to worry about it.
Manager of our computing center.
If you're running a shell-based server,
This is our faculty section.
or if you're running a server that allows shell users log in and can interact, you can put commands to it. Don't allow it for average users. You don't need to. If you have somebody doing web work for you, we have a system by where they can log into one server, do the work they need, and then it's moved to another server automatically. A few times a
Our
day.
help desk supervisor. She is actually physically located in a point in our library.
Something called IP wrapper for Unix flavors mixed. I'm sure there's something equivalent for Windows machines. It means that certain services run a certain way.
Can't help
you can restrict access to based on where people are coming from. If you need only to give people only access to the server from internal, you can then forbid and then allow access for your internal domain range and just allow access to the external
We only
domain
have 2
range.
Macs in the building, and that's beginning to change every year.
Password policy.
We have public terminals throughout, probably about 20.
There's a lot of resistance to assigning
We have about
people.
85 computers
You'll get
in
this
our
resistance to
library
assigning users
that are all wired.
complex passwords.
And then we
that's
have all of our
because they have a lot to remember. They have to
that
remember their
have
social
computers
security
in
number,
that
they
we're
have
also
to remember
responsible
their
for.
bank
And one of
PIN
the things
number,
we're going to talk a little bit more about another
birthday,
separate group of
whatever.
our
But strong passwords are actually a necessity. I mean, if you use your
center,
social
web
security number
services,
for it,
library services,
you're eventually
a whole
asking for
other
it. How much
group
your room
just
number for it, you're eventually asking for it.
Right
There are
now,
ways
talking
to
about what we
proactively
support
enforce policies,
is
allow them to
the
pick
end
their
user
own
desk, the work
passwords,
Their office.
while at the same time ensuring that certain criteria are met. So many alpha characters, so many numeric characters, a non-alpha
And our servers are Novell, NT 2000.
The one I like is you just simply take a phrase, space the final frontier, take the first couple letters from W.
There are about 6 file servers that we maintain with Novell.
Be careful about remote administration tools. There have been a number of exploits, people like PC Anywhere,
And then we have about 40
DNC.
network printers.
and there have been known exploits for that kind of thing,
So I'm just kind of giving you a
limited
feel
to
for
a
as I
degree.
go on in this presentation.
One of the
Kind of what we
safest,
have. I know a lot of
or
you have
probably
10
one of the
times
safest out there is a simple
larger
SSH
environments, some of
connection
you
and
have
encrypted SSH
10 times
connection.
smaller environments. So I'm just kind of giving
Remote
you a
administration for
feel.
Windows boxes
And of course, everything we
is
support
getting
goes
better,
along with
but
that.
until recently it was the
Workstation
best remote
hardware and
administration tool you
software,
had for Windows
server hardware and
boxes. all.
software. And we also support computers for all the faculty and staff. So if they have a problem at home, we help them out.
Talked about some host-based security. That's security on
try to have
your
them
individual server.
you in and see what they can do
One of the things you can run,
in-house.
it's
So
interesting
we
to
don't
look
have
at,
to use our
and is
offices.
somewhat helpful, is a port scan.
Staff computers, there's not a
What a
big
port scan is
overwhelming need
when somebody
for
wants to
staff computers. I'm not sure why.
enumerate your system, the first thing they're going to be looking for is, well, what are you actually running?
The majority of it's all
And most
cloud
network, and every networking by default,
OIT,
usually runs
that's
on a
information
port.
technology.
So they'll
That's
fire
why
off a
the
port scan detector, which will zip through and try to touch every port on your machine. And if they get a response from that port, they
So we
kind
are
of
very
assume
lucky.
that
No
that
service
service is running.
are not this lucky.
Ping
They
port
handle
25
everything with our cable.
on a mail server, it would come back, ping it on. If you pinged it on the non-mail server, chances are it wouldn't be there. This is a way they're looking for what services, what programs, what servers are actually running.
If something goes wrong with one of our cabling. So we're spoiled.
Because we want to see who's looking at
Wireless,
us. We want to
we've
make
got
sure
wireless within our
that it's
building
typically,
for
they have to know
the
what's there
library
before they can
and a couple
launch an
of,
exploit, or the hacker has to know what's there before they can
areas.
launch an exploit at
And we
it.
have
So that's why we put them on.
a plan.
It's always, it typically will be scanned before it's compromised.
So hopefully by the end of the
It's
summer,
getting more and more esoteric as time goes on. A lot of times what they'll
more and more
do
faculty are getting
is
called
if
for supporting
if they're a
that.
script kiddie, if they're just somebody that goes out looking for pre-made
Laptops,
exploits,
scanners,
they'll have an
printers,
exploit
training,
for a patch.
everything along.
Well,
That
there's only so
computer
many
on your
ports
desk
a
and
patch
those
can work
resources on
on.
your computer.
This is the exploit they have. They don't care what you're running on your 43. All they care about is what
We
you're
also
running
do
on
after-hour
48.
support.
That's all
We
they'll scan.
are available 7 a.m. to
Its
10
basic
p.m.
functionality is to sit on ports, which, by the way, will usually make the port look like it's open in many cases. And any traffic that is seen on that port, it will provide you with some kind of alert. Either alert to a log file,
just to show you how
some
it's
of the
broken down. Just an art
commercial grade ones to single page, something to your cellular
three
phone,
of us with Ken, and
flash
then
things on the screen.
help us that help on weekends.
Different detectors perform in different ways. The one I use is something called Portsentry. You can run it in what's called stealth mode, which means look at raw sockets, which means it doesn't look
Yeah, the
like
services
all
versus
the
the
ports are
media
open.
web
It watches
services
certain
and
ports, but if you were to
We
ping that
have
port,
our
it would come back as the port was
technology,
closed.
media
But,
services, Wayne Miller.
Portsentry will alert on it. Something like black ice. Scan somebody's machine who has black ice, it lights up like a Christmas tree.
This is a
You're
whole other
basically
section
inviting
now that has just come up in the last few years because everything's going web-based.
It's an effective layer of defense, but it's not really the only one you should use. It's usually the first one after the basics that people get into because it's relatively easy to set up. It's nice for information and it can be humorous, but it's not the only layer that you should have.
A video person who does not only does the runaround to each classroom when there's
another part of host-based intrusion
intrusion
detection would be something analogous to if you have people logging in,
So
something
this is a
else
whole other
to
department.
a statistical
And if something goes wrong in a
anomaly
classroom,
detector for login, and that's
we
what
don't have to worry
a
about it.
product called Hostsentry is. It's
computer,
open source.
something goes wrong with the computer.
It's same people make Portsentry.
Portsentry.
It is alpha software. It's real twitchy.
This has just changed from the
Work
last
at it,
year.
you can get it back to
We've had to
function.
cover the classroom for the last
It
year,
learns
year
login
before,
patterns
so on,
and alerts to
because
anonymous
we
login.
didn't have a separate group. The technology
So
is
if
changing and things
the
are
demon
growing
that
so
you
fast
have who
that
is
we had to do
agrophobic
more
and never
on
leaves the country,
And then our
all of a
web
sudden logs
services
into your server
and
at
the
3 a.m.
library,
from China,
because the library is the key
it would alert on
for
that.
to not only
And it will let you know that something's wrong. And it can do
helping
different things
us
based on,
find out what the backup
on what it sees. It can
But
potentially
Lexus
block the
and
login,
Lexus
it can kick them out, it can put them
And
in
the library
special
is, and
restricted
it's
shell.
hard to
Another
give
tool
them
that's been out there for some
what I'm
time
doing with technology.
is a
They
tool
know
called
exactly
Tripwire.
what
There's a
they need.
variety of
And
these
then
kind of
comes
tools
to
out there,
us, and we
both
go
for
to them
Windows
and say, okay, let's
and
find out what's happening.
Unix-based
They
machines.
got the inside scoop of
And
what they
one of the things, and the thing that Tripwire does
what kind of research
is it's well set up. After you
Let me
get,
go through our help desk route real quick. It's a little,
it makes a checksum of
It might seem
database
confusing to somebody who's never
of
seen it
what you define it, of all the
But
files
we
you
have
define
one
it, to make a checksum
telephone
database of. So in other
and
words,
it's called the
it'll go through and
7721.
say if you have
Someone needs help.
LS
The
command,
printer's not
DIR
working,
command.
can't get into Word Perfect, can't find the file. They call the
If
7721.
that file was to somehow
Find
change
coverage.
and yet retain all the
Rotating on
properties
calls,
that a normal
paging
user would see,
that
the
if
size is
nobody's
the
there to
same,
answer
date
the
is the
phone,
same, but somehow
will
that file
page us,
changed, it
and
would
then
trip
have
this.
20 minutes to
The file
answer
would be
that call.
different to the checksum database.
also can email
And would
us.
therefore send an
They
alert that
also-
somehow this file has gotten modified.
The thing with this
It
email
may-
is
it
we have
may-
an
doesn't mean there are shenanigans going on in the
ongoing
system.
staff review.
It could be
So
absolutely
if we get
innocent.
an email,
But for some
whoever
reason, somehow
reads
that
it
file
first
has changed.
answers the calls or forwards it to the
It stores it, it runs out of cron, it doesn't
And
run all the
then
time,
a
so
regular
it's not like it's
anytime I
not
have any
hogging up a lot of
message
resources.
whatsoever,
Typically
I'm
make it
always
run at
busy.
90.
So if I'm on call, I
And
actually
it
get
stores the
to-
database and figures out
on
checks
call.
against it.
And the
And reports
7072,
any
we have
differences
to
it
answer
finds in the
within 20
checksum
minutes.
that it initially
We might not
generated
have the
as
problem
what
fixed
is,
in 20
as
minutes. We
the
have to
checksum
answer that
has in
call
it.
and let the user know that we're on our way. Or
Caveat is you need to destroy the
See what I
database
can
in a
do,
safe place.
but as long as that we have
If
to
you do
answer
get
back within
a security breach and they do
But
detect that this is running simply by looking at the cron
the user
file
phones, right,
or
and he
the
doesn't get
scheduling
an
file.
answer. So of
The
course
first
they're
thing
not
you're
going
going
to
to do is go
want
on with the database
because
is
they
delete
need
it
help
so
right
you have no
away.
idea
So
how it's being
they do
run.
leave a message. The person on
You
call
can run it if you're,
paged.
if
They
you
also
can get
call
it down
all
to
of
the
our
size that
numbers.
it will run on a
We
floppy
might
disk.
be in a
You
meeting, which
stick it
really
on a
happens
floppy
that we're
disk,
all in a meeting.
set it to
The
read
user also
only,
emails
and then they
the
can't
file.
modify
And
it.
then the user pages all of us.
And that's if
So
you're going to change it.
what
If you're
happens
going
is
to
the
update it, you can always
identification of
then
support. We all
write a
have
little
to
script that you can then flip the
Rarely
floppy disk
happens
out, push
because
it,
we
it'll
try
update the
to
checksum,
train them and let them
floppy
know
disk
that if
again,
you call just
and you're
that
good to
one
go.
number,
You can also store it on,
a lot
you can
faster.
store it off on a network drive somewhere,
Or we won't be
or you can store it on a
different
CD,
from all of us.
someplace that would not be easily
trying to fix the
writable
problem
or
in all
easily
different
copyable.
aspects. One might be try to call, one
It
might
is
be running
tedious
down
to
his
set up.
office,
It
one might
comes out
have
of the box
it
looking
fixed
at
already.
almost every file
And here I
on
am
the
trying to
system.
rush down
And
to go see what
it
needs to
will
be
occasionally
fixed.
look at every
So
time
if
you fire
everybody
your
uses that
X,
one
the X is
telephone
on.
line,
You know,
it would
every time you
make
fire up the graphic,
everybody's
the
life
X are
easier.
on.
But again, that's hard to
Certain
do.
files
because
change, this
favorites
alerts to it.
and any
You
kind
have to
of
call those out, or what happens
They like to
is you
call
get desensitized to
certain
it.
staff
You get an email every
members
day
to
saying
for
that,
that person.
that this is bullshit, you just stop looking at it.
a human thing. There's nothing you can do about that.
The other thing we can do is kernel locking. There are ways to lock Windows kernels. It's more common to do it for Unix kernel. This comes from something called a rootkit, which is
How
the
many
belt
of you do
latcher.
preventive maintenance? How many of you go to each workstation,
Certain
make sure
hacker
they're all up to
areas. And what a
date,
rootkit
servers are all up to date?
is
Good.
after somebody has
Yeah.
compromised
Good.
security
We
on
try
the
to do the
system,
same thing.
they will
We're
install
always a
a
little
rootkit,
behind,
which
but we
makes
try to do it.
your programs
On
behave
our servers,
not like your
we
program.
definitely keep
Type
those
LS,
up
so
to
you
date
type
and make
PS
sure
to
that
see what
those
kind
are
of
maintained. That's number one.
activity you have, what's
That's
running on your machine.
my job
And it'll
is
give
to
you all the
make sure
activity
that
except for
that's
one
working.
thing.
That's the first
the
thing that I
hack.
check. I actually have
And they used to just touch
checklist.
the programs.
A
They
weekly
used to just touch the
checklist, a daily
individual
checklist,
programs.
a weekly
Now you can actually do it at a kernel
checklist,
level, so that you
a
can't even trust the
monthly,
kernel of your operating system.
and a
So there
quarterly.
have been a lot of patches that have come out that
Say
actually
from my
harden the
server.
kernel for you. If you need to make any
Making
changes
sure
to the
that
kernel, you
this
need
is
to
I check my
put a loadable
stats
module
on
in the
the
kernel.
server. Those are the
You're
daily
going to have
things I
to
check. And
go
I've got
through a
5
variety of
things.
different steps to
And
do
I
it.
check things on a
Typically, it's not
weekly
GTs, you
basis.
just sit and hack you to do it.
I make
Or
sure
you'll
my
be sit,
backups
and you have to
daily.
tell whoever else is administrating the
On a
system you've
weekly
done it,
or a
people
monthly,
sit
I
there
try to make sure I do
for days,
restore
not
it,
realizing,
make sure
understanding why they can't put them
I
on.
make sure there's no patches out there for any potential problems that might be happening.
Logwatchers are another relatively common
So
thing
by
to
doing
use.
this,
And
we can keep in
what
our
Logwatchers
servers
do is they'll
better-
sit there and watch the logs generated.
not I shouldn't say
Not only
better,
security
but
logs, but
they're
any log.
more
They'll sit there and
stable.
watch the logs
Because
that
I'm
are
not-
being
and it
generated
looks
by whatever
better on
programs you have running.
the dean of
And they
community
will
services
alert,
at law school that you're
based
doing it
on
because you're not.
Parameters that you set.
Something goes down, you can say, well, we should have done this.
One of the
We
best
should
and
have done
favorite
that.
ones out there is
That's the number one
SWATCH.
thing that we do.
It stands for Simple Log Watcher.
The workstations are a little
It's
different.
Perl, so it's portable. It'll
Always
run on
check.
both. It'll run on anything
You
that'll
have to
run
always get to the
standard
server
Perl.
workstation. To the
Windows, there's a Windows
workstation
version for it.
all the time. We try
Obviously,
to,
there's
and then we've got to turn
Unix
around
version for it.
and go back.
Watches any
So we
text-based
try to,
log file.
Just on a regular basis.
Uses regular expression
try
matching,
to-
so, and it's not real heavy into it, so as long as you have some basic understanding of regular expressions, you can make it work. And it can take some actions based on what it sees.
We
It
try to
can,
keep our applications up to
it can